The first few days of January each year are usually reserved for people to recover from their respective New Year's celebrations or used to analyze all those stupid resolutions made a few nights ago. But for petrolheads and especially motorsport fans from around the world, the first few days in January only mean one thing, that the countdown has begun. We are, of course, talking about the countdown to the toughest, the most challenging and the most grueling race on the planet, the Dakar. And for those very few who don't know, since 2009, the Dakar did not even take place anywhere near the city of Dakar or even on the African continent, but in South America. So with us in the studio and fresh from their long journey to Argentina, Chile and Bolivia, the proudly South African Imperial Toyota Dakar team. On my left, we got Rob Howie, who just successfully navigated his fourth Dakar, I think. Leroy Poulter is the current South African National Rally Champion, who just did his second Dakar. And this being a Dakar show, I don't think we have to introduce Janelle de Villiers and, of course, Glenn Hall, the Toyota team principal, who I guess is in charge of it all. Glenn, do they call you boss?
Sometimes, yeah, but those are on good days.
Glenn, let's start with you. This was the fourth year that this team of yours attempted to take on the Dakar with a South African Hilux, built by South Africans and obviously driven by South Africans. Just set that picture to us, or just tell us how that all comes together.
Well, that's absolutely true. We actually had 18 Hiluxes on the Dakar, of course, but the factory team, or the works team as we refer to ourselves, with Imperial sponsorship, and of course all our great South African partners with SA Cargo and Duxbury Netgear and Financial Services make all this possible. So for 2015 we had a new Hilux. Everything we'd learned, the rules had changed a little bit, not as much as we'd wanted to. But we had a really good test with the vehicle first time out when we went to Barbaspan, and then just before we left we went to Uppington for a final test, 45 degrees, and from there on in it was quite evident that this was the fastest Hilux,
good preparation.
Yeah, that we'd ever driven. You know,
I think we'll get to those details in a while. I just want to get over to Janelle there. Janelle, you're obviously considered, I think by everyone, as one of the most consistent and best Dakar cross-country drivers of this generation. I mean, your first year in the Hilux, you were, I think, third, then second, then fourth, and this year second again. How close was it really?
Well, you know, the thing I think obviously which puts this year apart from the other years is the fact that we were able to challenge for the lead. You know, the other years we were there through consistency and through you know, good reliability. But this year we had a car that was fast and reliable, and you know, it gives you great motivation if you can challenge for the lead. And you know, I think that was a big positive this year. Glenn and the boys did a lot of work to you know, build us this car. We put a lot of pressure on him, sometimes annoyed him a little bit, but no, they did a wonderful job, and you know, it showed in the race. We were right up there with NASA, and you know, it's the closest we've ever been, and that's very, very positive for the future.
Leroy, this was your second event, obviously first event, second event, still a steep learning curve. How steep was this?
Yeah, look, obviously we this event went a lot better than the first one. You know, we were, again, like everyone said, the car was incredible. You know, we had the pace to, I think, to win the race, and you know, a couple of things didn't go our way, but you know, obviously we learnt a lot. We finished the Dakar, and we learnt a lot of new things this time, and I think it can only help for the future.
Robin, a lot of people who, you know, sit at home watching watch the show every night, they see you as Leroy's navigator, but you play a much larger role within the team. What is that role?
Well, I work at Hall Speed with Glenn and the rest of the guys, so from a technical side, from a fabrication side I'm involved, and then you know, obviously being involved with the testing and what have you, and because I know the car intimately, it's obviously a lot easier for me to work on it. So I bring a more mechanical side to just co-driving.
Glenn, when you started, you started touching on the rules and the regulations. Let's get right into it. I mean, you guys have always been there or thereabouts with Janelle getting second, third, and fourth. He just said that this year was different. You guys were able to fight for the lead. What did you do differently? I mean, you had a new car, but what was different, and why was it more competitive?
Well, in a nutshell, in 2013 the global rules changed, very much like South African rules, where the formula was production based. But because it was new, the FIA gave it a 2-year window period to sort of balance the engine powers, because the difference between turbocharged diesel and the petrol engine which we use, there was 2 millimeters difference in restrictor size, which I didn't believe was correct. So there was a lot of lobbying and record presenting and history to get these regulations changed.
What exactly does 2 millimeters mean in this game?
Well, 1 millimeter difference this year is what we were given, plus 60 kilograms less to the Hilux, and that certainly made a difference. Also, the turbo diesel cars had to add on 50 kilograms, so there was 100 kilograms swing in the weights. And certainly the 1 millimeter probably made 40 to 50 minutes difference in time during the Dakar. So
over 9,000 kilometers.
Yeah, well, 6,000 racing Ks, but 9,000 total. So the difference was significant, and the new Hilux was better. The balance was better.
So the gap is closer, but it's not close enough.
I don't believe it's quite right yet. And we had FIA data loggers in 10 cars this year, so we had them in both of our cars and numerous other vehicles at the front of the pack of Dakar. So the FIA have been analysing that over the next 2 months, and hopefully it'll show that the restrictor sizes can be actually balanced a little bit better.
Speaking of the front of the pack, Janelle, running up there with the top guys in the world, I mean, you've been competing against these guys for 10, 15 years now. How fast do you really have to go to win the Dakar against guys like Carlos Sainz, Peter Hansel, all these big names that we hear about all the time?
Well, it's a bit of a balance, obviously there's some days that you really have to push quite hard. You have to go pretty close to your maximum capacity, but then there you get very long stages on the Dakar, and it's all about feeling. Some places when you feel good, you can push hard. Other places where you're not so sure about the terrain and you maybe not so happy, take it a bit more easy, and like that. Sometimes we cross some dunes at not a very hard pace, but like in this year's race, at the one point when NASA overtook me, we went absolutely flat out over the dunes. Then so the pace differs according to the situation.
So do you plan every day or stage as it goes? Do you start every stage with a plan in your mind, saying today we got to push and see if we can make up a few minutes, or do you take it as it comes? Some guys would like to do that, but personally, for me, I find that very risky. The race changes so quickly that you cannot plan beforehand what you're going to do year and year. Yes, okay, you have a look at the stage, you get an overview, and you try and make a decision on what you will do at this point and there. But you need to be very adaptable, because things can change very, very quickly. I mean, there can be a sandstorm, you can't see where you're going. There can be all of a sudden lots of rain. A helicopter can fly in front of you. So you need to be very adaptable. Tell us quickly the helicopter story. What happened on that day?
Well, it was a little bit of bad luck. We did the first part of the stage already. We were leading NASA by 3 minutes, and then the second half was only the last part was like 37 Ks. And then basically 15 Ks from the finish, in like a fish area, we were going quite fast, fifth gear. And then a helicopter obviously was flying next to us, taking some pictures, and I had to brake for a ditch. He obviously cannot brake as quick as I brake, so he obviously flared the helicopter, but that caused a huge amount of dust to come up, because he was flying very, very low. We drove straight into the dust, couldn't see where we were going at all. Obviously I can't stop there, because then you're stuck right on the place in the fish, and I hit a big boulder like this. I was lucky not to take the wheel off, got a puncture. And there we lost all our advantage to NASA. So instead of being 3 minutes behind him, we were now all of a sudden 8 minutes behind him.
So things can happen at every moment.
That's how it goes.
Leroy, from your side, there's no doubt that you are one of the faster drivers out there, especially in a rally car, also in a cross-country car. But what are the key differences? It's very different climbing from a rally car into a Hilux.
For sure. I think Janelle touched on it there. I think each day is different. You got to feel how you're going along, and the different terrain. There's obviously some terrains that I've got to learn a little bit more on, but how I approached this one was, if we felt strong in that day, we pushed along and we went well. But some days you don't feel that good, and you just take a step back, and you just judge it as you go along, as the race goes along. So yes, there's still a lot to learn. You know, each Dakar we're learning a lot, and you know, like you said, the pace is there, and I think we can only grow from there.
Where did it go wrong for you on this event? And by saying wrong, I mean you were challenging for stage wins, and then and obviously a good overall position, and then you lost some time with an incident early on.
Yeah, obviously, I think it was day 3. We started in the top 10, which is where you want to be in the race. If you're outside the top 10, you're really in a different race. So you got to run in the front all the time. And day 3 we started, I think it was 10th, and we got off to a good start. And you know, I think it was 8 kilometers into the race, we arrived at a crossing that was quite bad. We maybe came up a bit quickly, and we broke the lower front control arm, and you know, then luckily we had the parts in the car, and we fixed the car and carried on. And you know, then you were outside the top 10, which is difficult. The dust is a problem. The races, the guys are not so quick in front of you, so you catch them too quickly. So that was the first obstacle. And
I want to ask Rob about you saying you had to fix the car. Your role in the car, besides just reading the notes, entails what exactly?
Well, I passed the odd sweet as well. You know? Well, you know, I know the car a lot better than Leroy, and although he has a lot of mechanical skill himself, that is one item that is, you know, something has to give. You don't want the chassis to be falling apart or whatever, so a lower control arm we do carry.
So just tell us quickly, on this day, I mean, you had the incident, you had to stop. What exactly happened? Did you jump out and then started fixing the car with all the other cars driving past, making dust? I mean, explain what goes through your mind in that 30, 40 or 50 minutes that you spent inside the road.
Well, a race driver never thinks there's anything wrong with the car. I'm sure we can carry on, but when I couldn't open my door and you realize that the wheel's pushing against it, that we have to change it. So yeah, it's wheel off, and as quick as you can assess what needs to be changed. And I just asked Leroy for what tools and parts we need while we're busy stripping, you know. So, and of course it's never as easy in the workshop as in the field, where there's a car every 2 minutes, and some are getting quite close to us as well. So,
okay.
And aside from that, it has all the energy of being bent, so it doesn't just 2 bolts and it pops out. You know, you've got to wrestle the thing out. So.
Tough job, Glenn, from your side to take a team through to Dakar and compete at that level. I mean, this time, like Jenny was saying, you guys are really fighting for the top. What does it take to be at that level?
Well, I think, to put it in a nutshell, how fast the pace of the event was. At the front, after 4,000 Ks, they were still separated, Janil and Nasser, by 8 minutes, or it could have easily been 5 minutes. And if you take that 4,000 Ks in 5 minutes, that's not even a tenth of a second at Kailami, you know, in the racetrack over the event. So it was really close. And the speed that they're going, I think we clocked the all-time fastest speed that we've ever seen by a significant margin coming down the June and Ikike was 206 Ks an hour, which I think on sand, with not really knowing where you're going, is pretty quick. So
speaking of that top speed, Janil, just crossing that Salado Uni, the salt plains or the salt flats in Bolivia, something strange happened there.
Yeah, look, I mean, it was the first time we went there. It was quite high altitude and really a beautiful place. And the organizers decided to start us in batches of 5, obviously to make it more interesting. And it was basically 130 kilometers full throttle. So we all started, and you know, I tried to get into the slipstream of the other cars to stay with them. That's where maybe where Glenn's spoken about the restrictors, maybe not quite right. I couldn't stay with them if I wasn't in their slipstream. So so I followed the guys, and then about 40 Ks from the finish, we were all basically together. And then I decided to you know, to push Nasser, get in his slipstream and push him, because if you push him, we went like 14 to 15 Ks an hour quicker. So we went from doing 180 Ks an hour to 196. So I pushed him for 40 Ks basically, and we gained 2 minutes on the other 3 cars. So I didn't want to have us all 5 getting to this one road at the end.
Some of your circuit racing and touring car experience coming through.
I mean, it's exactly the same what you do on a circuit, so it's not a lot different.
Guys, I have to ask all of you, what will it take for this team? We all know that you can win the Dakar. What will it take for this team to do it next year?
I think more of the same that we did this year. We've learnt a little bit more. We've got the right team. You know, this year was the first time that we had all South Africans, everybody with the same passion, the same direction, and certainly the same motivation, and it showed, you know, it really showed in the team. It was, the guys were great. We had 18 people working on the cars and organising the pits with us, and I think if we can do that again just the same, with a little bit more practice and more refinement, then I think we can challenge for the win. That's what I think.
Well, I think on behalf of all South Africans, you guys did us all proud. Very, very well done. And don't go anywhere. We have more after the break when we chat to the guys who took on the dunes in a South African-built Nissan race car.